I have that installed. These are the best 3 mods that you can do to your XT250 for under $100. Let's get into it. So this top 3 list includes the 3 biggest mods that I think make the most bang for your buck on the XT250. However, these mods could apply to other dual sports as well. So for the purposes of today's video, we're going to be basing all these mods off the US dollar, but for my fellow Canadians, we'll also have the Canadian exchange posted up on the screen as well for all of these mods. That being said, there's only one that's just slightly above $100 Canadian, and that is our first mod, a skid plate. Now, if you do a lot of off-road riding, I would say a skid plate is pretty much the #1 non-negotiable mod that you should do to your dual sport if it doesn't come with one from the factory. A lot of them are pretty well priced. I got this one on Amazon for I think $107 Canadian, which is about $76 USD right now. And this little skid plate has taken some serious abuse. I mean, for the price that it was, it's a no-brainer. This is basically your engine insurance. It distributes load evenly across the frame, protects your engine and bottom of the casing from rocks that are flying towards it, and it's just a good thing to have. Honestly, one of the most worth it mods on this list, and that's why it's #1. Yeah, I would not want to be riding on this without a skid plate. But also, I wouldn't really want to be riding on this with the stock foot pegs. And that leads us to our next mod. So foot pegs are logically the absolute next mod that I would do to the XT250. The stock foot pegs are tiny and super, super skinny. I found my feet slipping off of them so frequently, it was absolutely insane. I also have plantar fasciitis. So even with my motocross boots on, the skinny little limited point of contact was just, it was hurting my feet. They were terrible. Now, there's a couple different types of foot pegs you can get for these online. Bradley Performance has some. I believe Pro Cycle has some. You can get some on Fort 9 in Canada. However, the Zeta ones are ridiculously expensive. I think they're like $200 Canadian for foot pegs. That seems crazy to me. There's also a couple on Amazon you can get, like JFG Racing and such. And it's of my opinion that it doesn't really matter what foot pegs you get as long as they're not the stock ones, because the stock ones are so bad that literally even cheapo Amazon ones are probably going to be better as long as they're of sturdy enough quality to last. But you're going to have to do some shopping on that one. I see price ranges of anywhere from $24 up to about $70 to $80. Personally, I'd probably go around the $80 mark. That being said, these foot pegs that I currently have installed are actually used foot pegs from a KTM 450. And these are the stock KTM foot pegs, and you know what? They're awesome. They've just been ground a little bit on one side here with an angle grinder, and man, they fit great, and they provide a lot more stability off-road, especially when you're standing up or going over rougher terrain. So this is the next step that I would do to the XT250 after a skid plate. Now this next mod may not be one that you're really expecting. This next mod is a sprocket change. When you're doing a little bit more techie kind of slow riding, going a little bit smaller on the front sprocket can make a huge difference. There's that skid plate putting in the work. All right, that's as nice a parking spot as any. A simple sprocket change can make a huge difference. I went a tooth smaller in the front. The stock is a 15 tooth and it's pretty good generally for a bit of street riding, bit of off-road riding. Yamaha really did get it right. It's the best of both worlds with this 5-speed that they've put in this bike. However, with the beauty of a sprocket change, they're usually fairly inexpensive and it can make such a big difference if you're trying to bias the bike towards either the street or off-road. And I, of course, as you can see here, am biasing my XT250 for off-road. So I went a tooth smaller in the front. And that made a huge difference. It made a difference in my ability to do clutch ups. It made a difference in hill climbing. And on the flip side, it did make a difference on the highway. This bike is now way more buzzy. Oh, she's screaming! But that being said, I don't really take this bike on the highway that much. I'm biasing it for off-road and a little bit of street riding like in town. So my highway riding on this is probably less than 5%, to be quite honest. That's why it made sense for me to go with a smaller sprocket. However, if you ride your XT on the road a lot, you can go bigger. Go with a 16-tooth sprocket and see how that feels. These are generally between $22 and maybe $35, $40. Front sprockets are a lot cheaper than changing the rear sprocket. That's why front sprocket change makes this list for the XT250, because it's, for how much of a big difference it makes, it really didn't cost all that much. And the benefit of that is if you don't like it, just swap back to the other sprocket. Something to note as well is if you get a bigger or smaller rear sprocket, that is usually enough of a change to warrant needing a whole new chain and front sprocket. And theoretically, you should be changing your sprockets and chain at the same time so that they wear evenly. However, I'm not too worried about it personally, as this is the stock factory chain on my 2010 here, and it is in fantastic health. So if this sprocket does end up wearing it out, honestly, it was probably time for a brand new chain anyways. And you better bet that I will be getting this exact Fritzko 14-tooth sprocket again when I get a new chain and rear sprocket, because I am loving this combo so far. It's great. And I've used all three sprockets, the stock, the 16-tooth, and the 14-tooth. I like the 14-tooth, but if you ride more on the street, you might like the 16-tooth more. So if you'd like to see a video covering what the different size sprockets, like the real world performance difference they make on highway, on the trails and whatnot, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel, and that way you won't miss any upcoming videos with the XT250 here. Well, that concludes our mods list for today. These are the top 3 mods that I would consider for an XT250 under $100 USD. Let me know down in the comments, what are your top 3 mods for your XT250 or other dual sport? And of course, there's some other notable mentions for mods like folding mirrors, hand guards, fork swaps, better tires. But these are the main 3 under $100 that had to make the list for today. Let me know what you guys think. What are your top 3 mods for your dual sport or other motorcycle? I'd love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for other dual sport content coming your way. Peace. Okay, barely to give up. Oh.